been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.
You know, it's insane that slavery is actually more popular today than it's ever been, apparently, in human history. Slavery, I'm starting to question if everyone's, false disdain for something that they said happened a couple hundred years ago. I'm starting to think that it's misguided or it's false. I don't think these people are really that upset about slavery, because if they were, they wouldn't be so anxious to go back to it. Right now, all over the country, you have Democrat governors, Democrat mayors in blue cities literally mirroring the talking points of the Confederates of the mid and early 1800s. Actually, since the conception of the country, allegedly, but from what I read, a lot of that was indentured servitude, but they want you to believe that they imported manpower from Africa, which doesn't even make any sense business-wise, because there's already manpower here. There were already natives that lived in the land that you could have fought, captured, conquered, and put them to work. You wouldn't necessarily need to import, that's like you wouldn't need to bring in manual labor. You already had labor there. But if you're listening to these governors and you're keeping score, they are all for it. Everyone is pro-slavery. They're pro basically paying people under the table who do not have any rights, or they can't file any paperwork against you, so you can kind of do what you want. A lot of these Democrats, what they do is they hire people that are illegals. They'll tell them, we're going to pay you in 2 weeks, and they'll hire, 10,000 people to do work from, 20 of their different locations. And then in 2 weeks, they'll call ICE. The people that get picked up, and they don't got to pay them shit. That's actually a net positive for your business. And because these people are not organized and are not necessarily loyal to each other or loyal to money, they can always find some other people to come and fall for the same scheme. It's just amazing to me that even blacks in America do not see how the Democrat talking points parallel with that of the Confederacy. Matter of fact, even the black people are like, hey, I like slave labor from Hispanics. I like slave laborers from illegals. They don't see any problem with it. That's why I tell you, I don't believe black people were ever slaves. I don't believe there was a slave trade. I don't believe that there was buck breaking and kunta kinte and all this cutting off feet and hands, and then the white slave owner just coming in there and just putting it on all the men slave. I think that shit's hypo homoerotic slavery bondage fantasy stuff that a bunch of LGBTQP black dudes came up with because they all have these obsessions with white men. I don't think any of that stuff ever happened. But let's just say, for argument's sake, it is true. Why would you be in such a hurry to do it to somebody else if it was done to you? It's just like when they talk about, what happened to the Jays. Okay, if that really happened to you, how can 20 years later you do that to another group of people, literally putting them in camps? You wouldn't if it happened to you. That's why a lot of these stories have to be questioned. It's just not popular speech. It's just not popular speech to question these stories. I don't believe in saying what's necessarily popular. I have questions, and I would appreciate an answer if you have one. But a lot of these things only exist because nobody questions them. But I'll let you listen.
Wisconsin, our ability to keep our undocumented people working like they are now at a really high numbers in the state of Wisconsin. If he takes us to a improper end, our economy will be gone. I believe that in Wisconsin, our ability to keep our undocumented people working like they are now at a really high numbers in the state of Wisconsin, if he takes that to a improper end, our economy will be gone.
If you lived in Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, you literally, and you were a part of the Confederacy, the government, which was at the time, there were two governments. There was a Union and the Confederacy of the South. If you were a part of the Confederate States, where your entire economy of your exports, everything between other states, your trade, everything, a lot of it, a big part of it was due to slave labor, cotton, wood, manual labor. You made the exact same argument to the North. They actually had treaties. People don't understand what triggered the war. They actually had treaties with the North that if there were runaway slaves or people that would leave, they were indentured servants, and then they would leave their posts when there was agreement. They took off. Apparently, there were agreements where they were legally bound to bring these people back to the South. And when they started breaking their agreements, well, how can we have a business relationship and how can we have fair trade if you're not sticking to our treaties and to our agreements? You couldn't do it. They literally said the same thing. Wisconsin's governor has the same talking points as as a senator from Kentucky or a governor from Alabama in 1855, 1854. If you take away our slave labor, our economy is gone. The Southern economy is gone. We literally use that labor to boost our economy. They are verbatim saying we need this labor from illegals that we're paying, a fraction of the price that we'd have to pay an American. We don't got to pay insurance. We don't got to pay death benefits. We don't have to pay any of it, child care, medical, nothing. If you remove that and make us start having to pay American wages, our economy is gone. It's not that and that's the thing. I don't see the economy being gone. I see their kickbacks being gone. I think that any extras and overs are divided up between the politicians. Basically, what they'll say is, okay, look, you're gonna have to pay an American. You want 10 Americans for a year, it's gonna be 100,000. But if you hire these illegals, it'll be 10 illegals for a year, 30,000. What we'll do is this. It'll still be a net positive for you. You're going to pay 60,000. So you're going to save, 40. You're going to pay us 30. They're going to get 30. It's just kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like you ever see these companies that are like not recruiters, but they're the agencies, a temp agency. You're being paid $20 an hour with a temp agency, but you're going to get 15. The temp agency gets 5. That's their cut for your labor. It's kind of probably the same thing that they're working out with these Democrats in these cities. You're still saving money because you're not paying an American, but you're still paying a little bit more than the money's not all going to the illegals. There are pockets being padded with that spread in between. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in hustles. I'm not trying to knock their hustle. It's just that I don't like being beat over the fucking head with stories of slavery that nobody witnessed and nobody was alive to experience, but they're talking to me about it every fucking day when somebody gets mad. Even though there are slaves right now in Libya and North Africa, the blacks in America aren't talking about sliding on them or getting their guns and going over there to free those. So what do you really care about African slaves, really? You only care about slavery when it's convenient, when you want to say that you're oppressed, when you want to claim some kind of victimhood. That's when you care about slavery, but not when it's, Latinos being underpaid. But are they still making more than they would have made in their home country? Yes, they are. So should they be complaining? No. Are they complaining? No. Do they just live in cheaper areas that other people don't want to live and they turn it into their own communities? Yes. However, are they obligated to vote Democrat? Yes, which is a problem. Democrat policies are antithetical to the United States. They're un-American at its core. California itself is un-American. A weak man like this calling himself governor, Tony Evers, is un-American, because right now slavery should have been abolished. Finding roundabout ways to still enforce and actually propagate slavery is wrong according to our laws in the United States. But if that's going to be amended and slavery is going to be legal again, well, then just make it illegal. Just make it legal. If you can be able to find people that you can hire to be types of slaves and not that are not just illegals, well, then make it fair. But let's just go ahead and be real with ourselves instead of dancing around it. The song and dance, all the fake shit, that's the part that's frustrating to me. We know these people are working under the table. We know why you want them there. Wisconsin is full of people that are not illegal. Wisconsin has plenty of legals that are unemployed, but you don't want to pay them. And your threat is the economy is going to be gone, so you want people to be afraid. The economy wouldn't be gone if you had to pay regular Americans. But what would you do if there were no illegals? What if we would have been enforcing our laws this entire time and there were no illegals? You're trying to say there would not be a Wisconsin? Okay, then Wisconsin can join Texas. We'll figure out a way to take care of Wisconsin. And then you step down. You know, maybe if certain blue states only can exist because of illegal slave labor, maybe they shouldn't exist. Maybe they should have to merge with states that actually are not dependent on illegal slavery. What do you exist for? If you can't figure it out, then join a state that can. You know, we're having this talk with Canada. If you can't find a way for Canada to survive without the United States having to subsidize the entire country at the tune of $200 billion a year, then maybe Canada shouldn't exist. It should be a state. And if these other states can't exist without slave labor, maybe they can't exist. If the Ukraine can't exist without the government subsidizing their economy so they can pay their employees and their staff and pay pay their whole payroll for it, then maybe that country shouldn't exist. That's why we're letting the Federation take it. They can't exist on their own. They only existed so that we could encircle the Russian Federation, and those plans are over. They have the Oreshnik. We're not encircling shit. We're not invading anything. They destroyed all of NATO's armies. So there's nobody that could go and take Russia. So the Ukraine's going to have to fold into Russia. If Wisconsin cannot survive without slave labor, then maybe it should fold into Minnesota. It should fold into Idaho. It should fold into another state which is being properly ran and they have employees that are actually citizens. All this whole threatening people and this whole fear tactic of, oh, we're not going to survive without slaves, that's out. We can't have that. I know you love your slave labor, but if you need the slave labor, then you don't need to exist. And that's just the bottom line. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. The Single Boyfriend, Club Rico, Right Wing Rico. Obviously, all my content is going to be right-leaning. Shout out to our sponsor, cosigning.com. We'll be back in about 20 minutes with another segment. Thank you, and we'll see you shortly. And leave a comment. We're on 6 different platforms right now, streaming live. So if you have any thoughts, please share them with us. Cheers.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.